Hello, this is LJ Motivate for you. Today we are going to be talking about a topic called why do I believe that parents can easily miss out on children going through different challenges or abuse. Let's talk about abuse. What do I mean when a child is being abused? Why is it that many parents unfortunately um, do miss out from getting to know about those type of trauma that the child is going through or the child has been through? Why is it that most parents unfortunately do not get to even get to hear, their children, like tell them about the different things that happen to them? Why does it really happen? And do parents even know, or they just pretend that they didn't know, or do they suspect something was going on within the household? Because according to research, a lot of abuse that usually happen within the family and inside the home. So why is it that many parents don't get to discover those certain type of challenges going on, or those type of situation that is, or how do I even put it now, when a child is being traumatized by somebody taking advantage of them, by somebody abusing them, or something that they can't even stand up to defend themselves, or something that they're even confused. Why is it happening to them? Why do parents don't get to discover these things? And why? Because parents don't get to know on time, and it just creates so much destruction in that child's life, and actually affect that child later on in life when if the child become an adult in their own personal life, in their own relationships. Why does that happen? Now, a lot of children may not want to tell their parents due to maybe they just believe that their parents are already having so much going on in their life. Maybe the parents is working so much, so the parents' primary focus really, even though that they know they love the trends to bit, but they really want to see how they can get money, how they can make money, how they can, be able to provide for their children. Whereby some parents, I mean, probably don't even have that proper, like they're not really like a mother figure, because not um they are not really their focus really is not on their children. So their their aim really, or their main focus is just on something else, whereby there are some parents who might not even really have a time for their children, maybe due to they are suffering maybe some mental health issues, maybe they are into maybe drug and alcohol misuse, or maybe the parent are even just going through their own stress that has really driven them from getting to really to build that connection with their children, to get to know their children, or to even get to have that relationship, in order for their children to be able to come to them and explain to them, or just confide in them, say things that is going on with them. And another thing, the abuser might have even threatened the child by telling the child that nobody's going to believe you, nobody's going to listen to you. So at the end of the day, the child, because the child does not understand what the consequences might be when they speak out, and they will listen and they become scared, and they just listen to what the perpetrator, or the abuser is telling them. So they don't really believe in themselves, neither do they believe of what they thinking or what they feel, because they don't really think that, they don't know what's going to happen after that, so they just take it in. And by time goes on, they probably just see it like it's the norm, because of the way the situation has been. And when a house is not settled, is also another trigger that can also create an impact. When a child lives in a house that parents work so much, or parents are being abusive to one another, where the house is so chaos that there's just so much argument, there's so much fighting, there's so much domestic violence, obviously the distraction is going to prevent the children from speaking out, from confiding on their parent, from even seeing their parent as a safe place to go to. So now that will stop the child from even thinking that their parent is even, it's the ideal individual to go to. So, and another thing as well, many parents neglect their children, maybe because they just feel like, okay, I've got my kids now. So it's like a loose parenting where there is no structure, there's no rules, there's no guidance. So they have the children, but their focus is not really on their children. So maybe the parents are just like, they travel all the time and they leave the children behind. They don't really check on their children to they don't have that relationship whereby they understand their children's world. They understand what's going on with their children, that they have that relationship. Because remember, it's just like every other individual person, or just like maybe a relationship between maybe you and your peer groups, or your brothers and sisters. You can only have a healthy, proper relationship by the way you spend time with one another, by the things that you guys do all the time and engage yourself in doing. That's where you see that people start opening up and being free, and they want to speak to you. And it also comes with, how do you come across? Because a child as well will not be able to go to their parents, it can be their dad or their mom, if your behavior to your children is very, very aggressive. If you're a parent that is very, very reactive when something happened, like you scream quickly, so they know that now it's not a good idea, because you don't have the ability to listen. You haven't got the ability to see things from their own point of view, or maybe you criticize them a lot, maybe because you probably judge your children so much that before they saying anything, you're like, it's your fault, but you should have known this, you should have known that. So when a child is growing up in that type of environment structure, obviously the child is not going to have the confidence, the courage to be able to come to one of you, or to be able to go to one of you and tell you guys what they've been going through, or what has been going on in the house. I mean, so say for example, maybe the child is going through bully at school, and it happens that you've never stick up for them. You have never been in a position whereby they build that trust with you, because they know that you don't just jump in accusing, but you listen and you analyze things before you can see how action can be taken. So easy for a child to settle in a bully when the home already provide bullying. So most children don't speak about bullying because their parents are big bullies. Their parents, unfortunately, maybe they will also grew up. They also grew up probably in a household whereby their parents were a biggest bully in their life. Their parents were very abusive, and so for their parent, it become the norm. So when a child receive a bully as well from their own parent, it becomes like a norm. So when a child goes out of the house, and they're facing a lot of different bully from their peer groups, from people at school, or maybe in their social setting, most times many children will just ignore to speak about it, because in their home, unfortunately, behind a closed door, their parents bully them so much. Their parents compare them so much with other children. Their parents use a lot of different abusive psychological way to manipulate them. So many times, many children don't even know who they are. Many times, it's really about the manner of ways that you come across with children. That's how they can be able to build that healthy relationship and see you as somebody that they can trust, to be able to open up with you. It depends on how you're judging, because if you want, it's just like your friend or your partner, right? If your partner can open up to you, can tell you their needs, can tell you their desire, coming from a place that they understand that you've got that emotional intelligence, that you've got that ability to just understand that we are both different people. We've got different needs, and we've got different wants. We've got different things that we get pleasure from. So when that the same thing happen to your child. So when your child understand that you are not a judgmental person, you're not a judgmental parent, so it's easy for them to be able to come to you and speak to you any challenges that they might be going through. Some parents might be taking it hard on their children, that their children cannot spell, that their children cannot write, that their children. Now, have you take your time to check what's going on with your child. Because when a child is also going through abuse, it can also affect their way of concentrating at school. It can affect their study. It can affect their mental health. So that child will not be able to function the way they used to function before. That's the reason why sometimes you see a child was just like super, on top, and suddenly the child just dropped. But how do you know what's going on with your child if you don't have a relationship? If you haven't developed a healthy relationship to be able to understand what's going on with your child in a way that your child can be able to explain to you the challenges that they are facing, for you to be able to see what needs fixing and fix it before it gets worse. So you can be able to contact health professionals. You can be able to go to any therapist in order for them to be able to support you guys and rectify whatever challenges that the child might be going through. So it's so important for parents to get to know their children. It's so important for the parent to develop time and just get to understand and communicate with their children. It's so important to build up emotional connection, because when you neglect your child emotions, it's going to have a huge impact on your child. It's going to have a huge effect on your child. So in a house, there can be food in the house. You can have a house, you can have food, but if there is no emotional connection, it's still like you've built a house without a solid foundation, unfortunately. So I would like to encourage parents from this video, try as much as possible to build emotional connection with your children, so that if your child is going through any sexual abuse, any physical abuse, any psychological abuse, to focus on, we're trying to build a mansion, or we are trying to work so much and ensure that we have a lot of money, we're riding big cars, we have a big house, mortgage, or whatever. But when a child does not have emotional connection, the impact that it has on that child's psychological effect is even worse than all what you are trying to acquire. So it's so important as a parent to develop a healthy, respectable relationship with your children, because that is when you know that you have won. This is LJ Motivate for You.